My name is Rachel Carter, and I'm 28 years old. The night my boyfriend laughed in my face, deleted a whole text thread right in front of me, and called me paranoid. Something small and exhausted inside me finally stood up, took off her metaphorical apron, and walked out of the version of me that thought love meant ignoring my own eyes. It was just a Thursday night, nothing special. We were on the couch in my apartment, the one with the cheap gray carpet and surprisingly nice kitchen counters, the place I'd been renting on my own for a year before he ever moved in. TV was on, some forgettable show humming in the background. My boyfriend, Adam, 26, was next to me, lit by the glow of his phone, thumbs moving nonstop like they had been for weeks. I noticed the way he angled the screen away from me before I even asked. "Who are you texting?" I said, casual, not even looking away from the TV at first. Immediately, the phone tilted just a little more. Barely, but enough. "Just Liam from work," he said. "He's asking about tomorrow's presentation." At 10:30 p.m., I glanced at the digital clock on the cable box. Must be an urgent slide deck. He let out this laugh. Not his normal goofy laugh, but the sharp, condescending one that always made my shoulders tense up. The one that said, "You're being ridiculous," before he even used words. "You are so paranoid, Rach. He's just a friend." And then, without breaking eye contact, he swiped up and deleted the entire conversation. Gone. Just like that. Not subtle. Not even a fake attempt to hide it. My brain registered the motion before my heart caught up. Thumb, swipe, trash, confirm. Something in me flipped like a switch. "Perfect," I heard myself say, my voice calm in a way that felt foreign. I stood up. "Then you won't mind being single." His smirk collapsed so fast it was almost satisfying to watch. "Wait, what?" He sat forward. "Rachel, what are you talking about?" I didn't answer. I walked down the short hallway to the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out my small overnight bag, the one I usually used for quick work trips. Behind me, I could hear him following, his voice pitching higher. "Babe, come on. You're being ridiculous. It's nothing. I deleted it because I knew you'd overreact like this." I unplugged my phone charger, threw it in the bag. "If it's nothing, why delete it?" "Because you get jealous," he snapped. "Like right now. You're literally packing a bag over some work texts." "No, Adam." I grabbed my toiletry bag from the bathroom. "I'm packing a bag because you are deleting messages while laughing about my concerns. There's a difference." He shadowed me through the apartment as I collected my life in quick, efficient motions. Laptop, a couple changes of clothes, makeup bag, work files. I knew exactly what I owned here, because I'd furnished this place before he ever came along. The whole time he alternated between sighing and lecturing. I was paranoid, I was insecure, Liam meant nothing, I was throwing away 3 years over nothing. When I headed for the front door, he grabbed my arm. "You can't just leave," he said, eyes wide. "We live together. You're throwing away everything over your imagination." I looked at his hand on my arm, then up at him. The words came out colder than I expected. "No, you threw it away when you decided I was too stupid to notice what's going on." I pulled free and stepped into the hallway. He followed me out into the parking lot, now in full panic mode. The night air was heavy and humid, the old security light buzzing overhead as he raised his voice. "Rachel, stop! You're overreacting. The neighbors are staring." Some blinds did twitch. A dog barked somewhere. "This is exactly why I delete things," he shouted. "Because you act like this." The logic was almost impressive in its brokenness. I unlocked my car. He darted behind it, standing directly in the way, arms spread. "Seriously? You're going to just run away?" he yelled. "You're going to ruin everything because you can't handle me having friends?" I put the car in reverse and inched back, slowly, forcing him to shuffle out of the way unless he wanted to actually get bumped. He moved. He kept yelling anyway. By the time I pulled onto the street, my hands were shaking on the wheel. Not from doubt, that had burned off somewhere between the deleted texts and the parking lot performance, but from the adrenaline of finally doing the thing I'd been too scared to do, leaving. I drove to my friend Jake's place across town. We'd been friends since college, the kind of quiet, steady friend you can call at midnight without rehearsing your explanation. He opened his door in sweatpants, took one look at my face, and didn't ask a single question. Just stepped aside, let me in, handed me a beer, and pointed at the couch. "Shoes off, phone on the coffee table," he said lightly. "You look like you're about to try to draft a legal memo in your notes app." I actually laughed then, a short, shaky thing. "You're not entirely wrong." That night, my phone went off like a slot machine. Missed calls, long texts, paragraphs of explanations, apologies, accusations, looping over each other until they all blurred into white bubbles and red numbers. I ignored all of them. My favorite message, though, the one that told me everything I needed to know, came around 1:14 a.m. I can't believe you'd traumatize me like this in front of our neighbors. When you calm down and want to act like an adult, I'll be waiting for your apology. My apology. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then hit block. Silence dropped over us like a blanket. Jake glanced over. You good? No, I said honestly, but I think I will be. He nodded, turned up the volume on the movie he'd put on, and didn't push. The lease on that apartment, the place Adam and I had turned into ours, with thrift store art and mismatched mugs, was in my name only. When he moved in 2 years ago, he'd been between jobs. Credit score wrecked from old medical bills and bad decisions. I'd already been in that unit for a year, paying rent myself. We'd made an agreement. I handled rent. He covered groceries and utilities. It had felt fair at the time, a team effort. Somewhere along the line, though, the balance shifted, or maybe I just finally saw it. Laying on Jake's lumpy couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead, I thought about the last few months. The secrecy around his phone, the way he always turned it face down, the nights he was working late with Liam, the condescending jokes about how I worried too much. I realized that for a long time, I'd been more afraid of being alone than of being disrespected. Now, I was more afraid of staying. The next morning, I woke up with that strange, clear kind of tired you get after crying yourself empty. My life was a puzzle scattered across a coffee table, pieces turned upside down. I didn't have a full plan yet. I just knew I was done pretending this was normal. I had my own place, my own lease, my own job. For the first time since Adam moved in, I let myself really feel what that meant. I had options, and he had far less power than he thought. I didn't respond to his messages. I didn't unblock him. I went to work, drank too much coffee, and answered emails like my life hadn't completely tilted 12 hours earlier. In the back of my mind, though, I knew this was only the beginning. Adam, with his love of theatrics and victim narratives, was not going to let this go quietly. He thought I was overreacting. He had no idea what it looks like when I actually take action. I told myself I'd figure out the next steps after a couple nights away. I'd go back, grab my things, talk to the building manager, decide what to do about the lease. I didn't know yet just how wild it was going to get. The locksmiths, the U-Haul, the just a friend who wasn't, the Instagram posts, the cops. All I knew, lying there on that couch with the hum of the city outside and Jake snoring softly in the next room, was this. I was done being the one apologizing for noticing the truth. 3 days later, I got my first confirmation that Adam's version of moving on looked a lot like trespassing. It was Saturday morning, and I was halfway through a lukewarm coffee at Jake's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Hi, this is Robert from Crestwood Apartments, said a calm, professional voice. You're listed as the primary leaseholder for Unit 3B, correct? My stomach tightened. Yeah, that's me. Is everything okay? Well, he said with a sigh that sounded practiced, I just wanted to double check. Did you authorize someone named Adam to change the locks this morning? My grip on the mug froze. What? He's here with a locksmith, Robert continued. Claims you lost your keys and asked him to handle it. I stood up, heartbeat in my throat. No, absolutely not. We broke up. I'm temporarily staying elsewhere. He has no authority to make any changes to that unit. That's what I thought, Robert said. I could hear muffled arguing in the background. Adam's voice, raised and insistent. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Thank you, I managed. And please make a note that no one other than me is allowed to make maintenance or security changes. He chuckled dryly. Already done. I've dealt with a few creative exes before. When I hung up, Jake looked up from his cereal. Everything good? Adam tried to change the locks. Jake's spoon froze midair. You're kidding. Nope, at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Jake set the bowl down slowly. This guy's about to learn what legal leaseholder means, huh? Oh, I said, opening my laptop. He's about to get a masterclass. By that afternoon, Adam had moved from locksmiths to emotional warfare. Since I'd blocked his number, the guilt tripping started coming from borrowed phones. First, his best friend Sophia. Rachel, what you're doing is abusive. You left Adam alone without warning. He's terrified and heartbroken. He doesn't feel safe. I stared at the message for a solid 10 seconds before typing back. He deleted texts from another person while laughing at me. I'm not interested in relitigating this. She replied instantly. Rachel, that's Liam. He's gay. You seriously threw away your relationship over a gay man? You owe Adam an apology. I laughed out loud. Jake peeked over my shoulder. What's funny? They're saying Liam's gay now. Jake raised an eyebrow. Oh, convenient. Right? I said, scrolling back through my mental timeline. Then why delete the messages? Why lie about late-night work stuff? Why angle the phone away every time I walked into the room? Jake shrugged. Maybe they're both auditioning for the same drama. By Monday, I decided to stop reacting and start acting. I took a personal day, drove to the apartment mid-morning, and parked across the street for a moment to steel myself. The blinds were open. From the window, I could see the faintest movement inside, like someone pacing. I unlocked the door quietly and stepped in. The air hit me first, a weird mix of cologne, stale takeout, and something sharp. My apartment looked half lived in, half abandoned. Dishes piled in the sink. My couch had a stain I definitely hadn't left. And on my nightstand next to the lamp was a men's watch, sleek, heavy, and definitely not mine. I stood there for a long second, just staring at it. Then I took out my phone and snapped a photo. No touching, no confrontation, just documentation. Then I started packing. The TV, my espresso machine, my kitchen knives, my office chair, all mine. I boxed everything methodically, labeling it like I was moving for real, even though I had no idea where I was going yet. When I opened the utility drawer, I found a receipt from a bar across town dated 2 nights ago. 2 cocktails, 1 appetizer, and a charge note, Liam. The dots were connecting themselves now. Once everything was packed and loaded into my car, I sat in the driver's seat and typed up a formal message on my phone. I sent it through a Google Voice number to his and CC'd the building manager. Subject: Notice to vacate. Adam, this message serves as formal notice that I will not be renewing the lease for Unit 3B when it expires in 45 days. As you are not listed as a tenant, this notice constitutes your 30-day period to vacate the premises. All utilities in my name will be disconnected in 30 days. Please make alternative arrangements. Rachel. I hit send and exhaled slowly. There it was. Clean, simple, factual. No emotion for him to manipulate. By the time I got back to Jake's place, my phone was already vibrating. Robert, she's here again. She's yelling about safety, saying you abandoned her. I reminded her she's not on the lease. Don't worry, I've got your back. Jake read the text and grinned. Robert's a real one. I nodded, though my stomach was knotted tight. Oh, it's not over. She's just getting started. The text started flowing in waves. From Adam's mom. Rachel, sweetheart, whatever happened, please talk to him. You've been together too long to throw it all away. From his sister. You're a piece of trash for what you're doing. My brother deserves better than some insecure girl. And from an unknown number, definitely Adam. You have one chance to come back and discuss this like an adult. After that, I'm done waiting for you to grow up. Jake snorted when I showed him that last one. He's done waiting. That's rich. I leaned back on the couch, exhaustion seeping in like a slow leak. He really thinks I'm bluffing. Jake tilted his beer toward me. Then make sure you're not. That night, I sent an email to a tenant lawyer I found online. Just a short, factual message. Hi, I'm the sole leaseholder on an apartment where my ex-boyfriend has been staying. He's refusing to leave and attempting to make unauthorized changes. Can we set up a consultation? She replied within an hour. Absolutely. You're fully within your rights. Keep documenting everything. We'll make sure this goes by the book. For the first time in days, I slept soundly. Not because it was over, it wasn't even close, but because I finally had a plan. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to play tug-of-war with his reality. I was just going to quietly, legally, dismantle the world he thought he controlled. By Tuesday morning, the next escalation arrived, right on schedule. Liam, the gay friend, posted a photo on Instagram. My couch, my throw pillows, my old living room wall. Caption: Home is where the heart is. And just like that, the narrative I'd suspected for weeks was confirmed on the very couch I'd bought. I stared at the photo until Jake came over to see what was wrong. When he saw the screen, he choked on his coffee. Oh my God, that's your apartment. Yup. And that's Liam. Jake leaned back, smirking. So much for just a friend. I took a deep breath, screenshot it, and sent it straight to my lawyer. She wrote back one line. Perfect. Keep everything. This just made your case bulletproof. By the following week, Adam had turned victimhood into a full-time job. The first sign came on Instagram. A photo of our empty living room, now stripped of everything except his thrift store couch and one dying plant. The caption read, "He took everything and left me with nothing. This is what 3 years meant to her. Never let someone make you feel disposable." And just like that, he'd launched his rebrand. From the guy who deleted texts to the poor, heartbroken man wronged by a cold, controlling ex. The comments flooded in. You deserve better, bro. She sounds toxic. Financial abuse is real. Stay strong, King. King. My jaw clenched. He had turned my quiet boundaries into his redemption arc. The smear campaign didn't stop there. Mutual friends started commenting on old posts, the cute couple photos I hadn't taken down yet, with lines like, "You dodged a bullet, Adam," and "She never appreciated you anyway." Even one of his coworkers DM'd me. "Wow, Rachel, really disappointed. Making someone homeless over a misunderstanding? That's cruel." I stared at the screen in disbelief. Homeless. The man who'd been trying to change locks on my lease now painted himself as a castaway. Jake leaned over my shoulder, squinting at the phone. "You should frame that one. It's pure performance art." "I don't even know how he does it," I muttered. "He's allergic to accountability, but somehow immune to shame." Jake laughed. Classic combination. Dangerous species. Then, on Monday, things escalated from social media lies to real-life intrusion. Reception buzzed my desk at work. Rachel, you have visitors. They said it's family?" I frowned. Family? When I stepped into the lobby, I froze. Adam's parents, Carl and Patricia, stood there, looking somber, as if attending a funeral. "Rachel," Patricia said, reaching for my hand, "we just want to talk." "Mrs. Walters," I said carefully, "this really isn't the place." Carl stepped in, his voice deep, practiced, the kind of tone men use when they expect authority to do the work for them. "We drove 2 hours to come here. We need to discuss this situation, woman to man." "Man to woman," I corrected. He ignored that. "Maya, sorry, Adam, made a mistake." He gestured vaguely, as though infidelity, lock-changing, and squatting were all minor lapses in judgment. "You're destroying his life over texts." I took a breath. "No, I'm choosing not to renew my lease and gave him legal notice. That's not destruction, that's boundaries." Patricia's lower lip trembled. "We didn't raise him to be homeless. He can't afford that apartment on his own." I almost laughed at the irony. Then maybe he should have thought about that before moving his friend in while we were still together. Her eyes flickered, the briefest flash of guilt, like she knew. Carl's jaw tightened. "Whatever happened between you two, making him homeless is cruel. Be a woman of grace, Rachel. Help him transition." I stepped back. Being a woman of grace means not paying rent for my cheating ex and his new roommate. The sentence hung there, heavy as lead. Carl blinked. Patricia's tears vanished instantly. Security appeared a few minutes later, after I politely, firmly asked them to leave. They refused at first, yelling about regret and forgiveness, until a guard escorted them out. I stood by the elevator, heart pounding, hands shaking, not from fear, but from fury. I had expected manipulation from Adam. I hadn't expected it from the people who taught him. That night, I got another message, from the same Google Voice number I'd used to send notice. "Rachel, I'm willing to forgive you for how you've acted if you continue paying rent for 3 months while I find a place. Leave utilities in your name until I'm settled. Return the furniture you stole and give me the security deposit since I maintained the apartment. Once that's done, we can have a civilized conversation." I actually laughed so hard Jake had to look up from his beer. "What's funny?" "He's willing to forgive me," I said, air quoting so hard it hurt. "If I keep paying rent for him." Jake blinked. "Forgive you for what, exactly? Taking back your own stuff?" Apparently for forcing him to experience the consequences of his actions. Jake whistled. "Guy's running a masterclass in entitlement." The next morning, I forwarded the message to my lawyer, attaching screenshots of everything. The fake social media posts, the DMs, the parental guilt trip, and now the forgiveness contract. She called within 10 minutes. "Rachel, I have to say," she began, voice crisp with amusement, "this is one of the most audacious things I've seen in a while." "Tell me I'm not crazy." "Oh, you're not. You're remarkably calm, actually. Here's what we'll do. I'll draft a formal reply. Professional, factual, and absolutely devastating." She typed it while we were still on the call, reading it aloud. "Miss Walters, your request has been reviewed. As previously stated, you have until date to vacate. No additional accommodations will be made. The furniture removed belonged to Ms. Carter. The security deposit will be handled per the lease agreement between Ms. Carter and the property management company. Regards, attorney name." She paused, satisfied. Short, elegant, and leaves no oxygen for arguments. I grinned. "Can I frame it?" "Please do." 2 days later, Robert, the building manager, called again, voice tight with restrained irritation. Rachel, just thought you should know. There was a gathering at your apartment last night. My stomach dropped. A what? A party. Loud music, too many people. We got noise complaints from 3 different units. When I checked, Adam said it was a fundraiser for his unlawful eviction. I pressed my fingers to my temples. You're joking. I wish I were. He sighed. We documented everything. Photos, guest list, even the Venmo QR code he taped to your front door. Jake, overhearing from the couch, burst out laughing. He was charging admission? Oh, he's bold. Robert continued. I've already issued a violation notice. It'll help your case if this ends up needing police involvement. Thank you, I said, every syllable dripping disbelief. Please keep copies of everything. Already printed. When I hung up, Jake was still shaking his head. He's seriously monetizing his own eviction? Apparently so. Jake lifted his beer. Well, here's to creative entrepreneurship. That night, I sat alone in the quiet, scrolling through my camera roll. Screenshots of texts, photos of the apartment, timestamps, lawyer emails. It was all there, a paper trail of madness. Part of me still couldn't believe it had escalated this far, that a man who once couldn't remember to close the fridge now somehow had the energy to orchestrate a smear campaign and a cover-up. But beneath the exhaustion, something steadier hummed. I wasn't scared anymore. I was done reacting. Now I was preparing. Because if Adam wanted to turn this breakup into a spectacle, he was about to learn what happens when the woman he underestimated keeps receipts. By the next Friday, Adam's antics had officially crossed from pathetic to criminal adjacent. It started with another call from Robert. He didn't even bother with pleasantries this time. Rachel, he said flatly, I've had it with your ex. My stomach sank. What happened now? Apparently, he decided to throw another goodbye party. 50 people, minimum. Loud music, alcohol, cover charge at the door. He called it a Justice for Adam fundraiser. I pinched the bridge of my nose. You're kidding. I wish, he said. He's claiming it's to raise awareness about unlawful evictions. Meanwhile, half the building is ready to riot from the noise. I've issued a 3-day cure or quit notice for violation of lease terms. Police were called, again. We've got everything documented. He paused. Honestly, Rachel, you handled this better than most would. I've seen people break down over far less. I'm beyond the breakdown stage, I said quietly. Now it's just logistics. When I hung up, Jake was sitting at the kitchen island, phone in hand. You've seen this, right? He turned his screen toward me. Adam's latest Instagram story. A selfie with a beer in hand. A crowd of strangers behind him in my living room. The caption. They can evict the man, but not the movement. I actually laughed. A movement? What, the Society for Entitled Exes? Jake snorted. Founding president. Lifetime term. I took a screenshot and sent it to my lawyer with the subject line, Update. Illegal party number 2. Her reply came less than 10 minutes later. Excellent. Keep copies of every post. This constitutes further evidence of lease violation. You're doing everything right, Rachel. For the first time in weeks, her words felt like air in my lungs. The next day, the doorbell at Jake's apartment rang. Jake frowned. Expecting someone? I wasn't. When he opened the door, standing there was Liam, the gay friend, who somehow managed to live at my apartment more than Adam ever had. He looked surprisingly calm. Designer jacket, forced smile. Rachel, he said smoothly, can we talk? Jake's shoulders immediately squared, blocking half the doorway. About? Liam glanced past him at me. This whole situation. Adam's losing it. You could just be reasonable. Reasonable? I repeated, stepping closer. You mean let him keep living in my apartment rent-free with you? He flinched, but recovered fast. Look, we both know he doesn't have anywhere to go right now. It's cruel to just... Cruel, I interrupted, voice rising. He changed the locks, tried to move you in, threw 2 parties, trashed the place, and posted it online. That's not homelessness. That's consequences. Liam's tone hardened. You're going to regret this, Rachel. He's not the only one who can make things difficult. Before I could answer, Jake stepped forward. All 6'3" of him, solid as a wall. Everything good here? Liam took one look at him, swallowed, and backed off. Fine, whatever. You'll see. He turned and left, the echo of his footsteps fading down the hallway. Jake closed the door slowly. That was adorable. I let out a shaky breath, half laughing. Adorable? He just tried to intimidate me. Yeah, Jake said, cracking open a soda, and failed spectacularly. That night, I got another email from my lawyer. Rachel, the building manager, has forwarded all documentation, noise complaints, police visit, lease violations, and screenshots of his fundraiser posts were in excellent standing. If he continues this behavior, management can pursue expedited removal under property damage and nuisance clauses. Keep staying calm. It's working. A. Delgado. I reread that last line, keep staying calm, and realized how foreign it felt to have someone remind me I was doing enough simply by not reacting. 2 days later, the calm shattered again. Robert called me. Sunday afternoon, voice tight. Rachel, just to update, your ex's 3-day notice expires tomorrow. We expect him to vacate. I nodded, pacing my kitchen. And if he doesn't? Then management proceeds with formal eviction filing. But given his behavior, it might happen sooner, especially since... He trailed off. Since what? There's damage from the party. I stopped pacing. What kind of damage? He hesitated. Let's just say the carpet's done for, and your kitchen cabinet door is missing. We're still assessing the rest. I closed my eyes. Unbelievable. Robert sighed. We'll document it all. It'll work in your favor legally. But Rachel, be prepared. He's unraveling. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, spinning slow circles above me, thinking about how easily Adam had turned our entire history into a battlefield. He'd always been the kind of man who couldn't lose quietly. Every argument had to end with him as the victim, even when he'd started it. But now, he wasn't just spinning stories. He was destroying things that didn't belong to him. Physically, publicly, proudly. And the worst part wasn't the mess he made. It was the realization that he believed he was justified. That somewhere, deep down, he truly thought he was the injured party. The man who'd laughed while deleting messages in front of me, now crying online about injustice. It was grotesque, and it was almost funny. Almost. Monday morning, I woke up to a flood of texts from Robert. He's refusing to leave, says he legally lives there. Also, he painted a wall purple. Purple, of course. I called my lawyer immediately. He's staging something, I said. He's trying to prove he lives there. Let him, she said coolly. Every false claim he makes just strengthens our case. What do I do? Nothing, she said. You've done everything right. Let him hang himself with his own evidence. By evening, Jake poured us both a drink and clinked his glass against mine. To doing everything right, he said with a grin. I smiled weakly. You think this'll end soon? Oh, I think it's about to end, he said. And from what I've seen of this guy, he's going to go out with a bang. He wasn't wrong. Because the next morning, I got a text from Robert that made my stomach drop and my lawyer's eyebrows shoot up when she read it. He's moving furniture in. Not out. Claims he's reestablishing residency. I stared at the screen in disbelief. He wasn't even pretending to leave. He was staging a fake life. Jake read over my shoulder and whistled low. You called it. Bang incoming. And oh, he had no idea how literal that would be. When Robert's text came through about Adam moving furniture in, not out, I knew the end was near. Not the quiet kind of ending you hope for. No closure talk, no civilized goodbye. But the loud, flaming, final kind that people remember for all the wrong reasons. My lawyer, Angela, met me in the leasing office the next morning. He's not trying to stay, she said, flipping open her notebook. He's trying to create evidence. Fake residency, proof of tenancy, something to drag this out in court. I exhaled. He's staging a performance. Angela smiled faintly. Then let's make sure the audience includes a camera and witnesses. When we arrived at the apartment, the door was open. Inside, I stopped short. The place barely looked like mine anymore. Or anyone's, really. A bright purple wall screamed from the living room. The kitchen cabinet doors were missing. A sticky trail of something, maple syrup, glistened across the tile like a crime scene. And in the center of it all, surrounded by a mismatched cluster of Goodwill furniture, sat Adam. He was crying into his phone, live streaming. This is what she's doing to me, he sobbed dramatically to his followers. She's making me homeless. I gave her everything. Look at how I'm living. Robert stood frozen beside me, jaw tight. Angela calmly pulled out her phone and began recording. I stepped further in, trying not to slip on the syrup. Adam, I said evenly, you need to leave, today. He looked up, eyes wide like a cornered animal. You can't just show up here. I have rights. Not according to the lease you're not on, Angela said coolly. And you're on live stream destroying property, which is an interesting legal choice. Right on cue, Adam grabbed a lamp and hurled it at the wall. The crash echoed. Angela didn't even flinch. She looked at Robert. Call the police. 15 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. The Instagram Live was still running, comments flying across the screen. Girl, what is he doing? Why is there syrup on the floor? This is embarrassing. The officers took one look around. Sir, are you on the lease? Adam puffed up his chest. We lived here together for 3 years. She's evicting me illegally. That's not what we asked, one officer said, unimpressed. Are you on the lease? She wouldn't let me be, Adam shouted. She's abusing me financially. Angela stepped forward, handing over a folder thick with documents. Here are the lease papers, formal notices, and copies of his own public posts from parties he threw in violation of lease terms. Also, photos of property damage taken before your arrival. The officers flipped through the paperwork silently. Meanwhile, Adam's chat exploded again. Someone must have screen recorded everything. Then came the moment that sealed it all. Liam burst into the apartment like a bad plot twist, waving his phone. You can't do this. He lives here. This is a legal eviction. One officer turned to him. And you are? I live here too. Robert crossed his arms. No, you don't. I have his ID on file from the party incident. He doesn't even have this address on his license. Sir, said the other officer, do you have proof of tenancy? Liam looked from Adam to the cops, panicking. Maya, Rachel, tell them. Angela stepped in smoothly. We have documented proof that this man has been staying here against the leaseholder's consent. Also, social media posts of him referring to this as our place weeks after being served notice. The officers exchanged glances. Finally, the first one turned to Adam. Sir, you're being placed under arrest for vandalism and destruction of property. Adam's eyes went wide. You're arresting me? She ruined my life. You threw a lamp into a wall on camera, the officer replied flatly. You did that yourself. As they cuffed him, his live stream still running, the comments rolled faster. Bro, this is wild. She warned you, not the syrup. Angela leaned towards me. Well, she murmured, that's going to age beautifully in court. The aftermath came in waves. The property manager's report listed over $3,000 in damages, paint removal, cabinet replacement, professional cleaning, and new flooring. Adam was charged with misdemeanor vandalism, pled down to criminal mischief, got probation, and had to pay restitution. His parents, because of course, tried to sue me next. Intentional infliction of emotional distress and illegal eviction. Angela nearly laughed when she saw the filing. I hope they like reading, she said, assembling a binder thicker than a textbook. It included screenshots of Adam's own posts admitting he didn't pay rent, videos of his fundraiser parties, the police report, his arrest record, the live stream of him throwing a lamp, and my original text giving him 30 days' notice. The other lawyer dropped the case within a week, probably before finishing page 2. But the real twist came online. Someone clipped the Instagram live and posted it on TikTok with the caption, "This is why you don't cheat and expect to keep the apartment." It went viral in our city, hundreds of thousands of views. His entire abuse narrative collapsed overnight. Even his own friends turned on him in the comments. Wait, this is the guy who said she left him for no reason? Bro said Liam was gay. Why is he living there? Not the syrup sabotage. He deleted all his accounts within 48 hours. Robert, bless him, offered me a discounted upgrade, a corner 2-bedroom with sunlight pouring through the windows. Least I can do, he'd said, after what you went through. Jake helped me move in that weekend. As we set the last box down, he looked around and whistled. Feels lighter in here, doesn't it? It does, I said quietly. I stood by the window, looking out at the courtyard below. Somewhere out there, someone else was probably learning the same lesson I just had, that love doesn't mean surrender, and peace doesn't come from apologizing for seeing red flags. Adam had spent months trying to make me feel crazy, ungrateful, guilty. But in the end, all he'd done was hand me proof of exactly who he was, on camera, for the world to see. I smiled faintly. You know what my only regret is? I asked Jake. He looked over. What's that? Not leaving sooner. Jake grinned. Better late than never. I nodded, watching the afternoon light spill across the floor of my new apartment. No shouting, no lies, no broken glass, just quiet. Finally, the kind that lasts.